In the 1930s, toward the end of the Great Depression, the federal government hired out-of-work writers to fan out across the country and ask ordinary Americans about their lives. The writers collected thousands of oral history narratives. First Person America brings together the best of these stories, more than 80 in all. You'll hear a North Carolina patent medicine pitchman, a Bahamian midwife from Florida, a Key West smuggler, a rodeo clown, a Pullman Porter, and Chicago jazz musicians. There are men and women who remember meeting Billy the Kid, who survived the Great Chicago Fire and who fled the Czar to America. They worked in coal and granite and cotton and iron. The women quilted and pressed laundry and took in boarders and delivered babies. And when their men ran out on them, they swallowed their pride and threw rent parties. Here's a highlight from Hank Sims, gold miner and drifter. Sims was 86 when he talked to federal writer Walker Winslow on the porch of the Oddfellows retirement home in Portland, Oregon.
When I talk, I'm liable to do some tall running off at the mouth. I'm a miner, and for 40-50 years I've been traveling a shaft straight into this poorhouse. You can't call that very good mining. I'm a hard rock man, and I learned my business at Kermit, California, up in the Feather River country. That was a big diggings, and some of the best of the old hands was there. A man had to know his business, and a foreman could tell a greenhorn like reading beef from a poor ox. He didn't ask the foreman how to do anything. He'd just say, "Go ahead, and if it don't suit me, I'll let you know." No one ever got fired in them days. All you had to do was criticize a man, and he quit. There was none of this sucking around like you have now, and a man didn't hang on to his job like a priest to a parish. We just drug down her pay and principal and went down the road to a new job. They called us hobos now, I guess, but in them days we was known as Overland Johns. And by God, I knew every creek and cow between here and Mexico and right back up to Alaska.
Elizabeth Miller of Vermont was 90 at the time of her interview with federal writer Rebecca Haley.
Life is nothing but changes. We never used to can things the way we do now. We salted pork down, froze the beef and packed it in oats and had the root crops in the cellar. One fall, we had a 550-pound dressed hog hanging in the yard. The men went off to Wells River to take up another hog they dressed at the same time and left it hanging there and the cauldron kettle half full of water. They aimed to get back and take the hog down cellar before it froze. It would never do to let pork that was going to be salted freeze. I was all alone with the children, and I waited until almost 12, when my husband didn't come. And so I took a lantern and a saw and a knife and went out to fetch in that hog. I emptied out the water from the cauldron kettle so it wouldn't freeze and burst. Then I cut up that hog and loaded it piecemeal onto the sled. The worst part was getting it through the front door. But I managed. I had it all done before my husband got home. He asked who had brought the hog in. I said, I did. He asked, well, who helped? I said, alone. I wasn't wasting many words on him. He was struck dumb.
Elmer Thomas, a black slaughterhouse worker, was a very active union member and secretary of his local. He was 32 at the time of his interview with federal writer Betty Burke.
They got a credit union in Armours. Keeps a lot of people out of the CIO. If you want a loan from them, you have to have a good record. Well, some colored fellow tried to get a loan. They knew he was a union man, so they made it hard for him. Told him to get some worker with a bank account in the credit union to vouch for him. Fellow went and got Charlie. Charlie been in the yards a long time, and he happened to have some money there. He walked into the office and signed them papers, and them in charge of the loans with their eyes popping like a fish out of water. Manager was so upset he asked Charlie to step into his private office. He said to him, "You really mean to sign for that man, and he a colored man? I hate to think a white man would want to take on that responsibility." Charlie, he's Irish, looked at this manager and grinned. He said, "Well, sure now, I do appreciate that bit of advice, seeing you ain't charging nothing for it. But that black boy's me friend. He works with me. He's a union brother, and I guess maybe you're surprised to hear that I'm with the union too. So just save that advice of yours for somebody don't know no better." He walked out of there and slammed the door. You think that colored fellow didn't get his loan? He got it.